Vicky Ford.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's been a pleasure to be in the Chamber this afternoon, listening to some excellent maiden speeches, the one in Barrow-in-Furness, East Surrey, and of course Birmingham Northfield, a place that I still hold very close to my political heart. It's very fitting that people are making maiden speeches on the topic of the Queen's speech. As a One Nation Conservative, I warmly welcome this Queen's speech and the opportunity it unlocks for people all across our country. In particularly, I welcome the investment in public services in our NHS, in our police and in our schools. And it is only because we have a strong economy and the legacy of the past decade of Conservative-led government that we can invest in that public services. The world is changing at a remarkable rate. We are in the fourth industrial revolution, and to keep that strong economy we need to continue to invest in science and technology and innovation. And I am a bit of a science geek, so I do welcome the Queen's speech commitment to keeping us as a world leader in science, to boosting our R&D funding and to unlocking innovation. Innovation is not new in my constituency in Chelmsford. It was 100 years ago, exactly this year, that Marconi chose to locate Chelmsford for his radar factory. And 100 years ago, when the great Australian singer first broadcast, the first ever radio broadcast from Chelmsford, Dame Nellie sang to the world. We led the world that day in the communications revolution that we are still living through today. And one of the reasons Marconi chose Chelmsford was the skills of the people there, and the other was the infrastructure. Infrastructure matters, and as the person who has been honoured to chair the all-party group for infrastructure in this Parliament, I believe it is vital that we continue to invest in our infrastructure, as this government is proposing to do. Failing infrastructure is a big issue in my constituency. Our flyover that we'd relied on for many decades suffered terminal damage in last summer's heatwave. In Chelmsford, we have already seen how our infrastructure has to be climate change resilient. And that is just one of the reasons why I have chosen to speak today on the green economy. Climate change is the biggest threat to our future. We only have one planet. The science is clear. We have to stop those emissions. We must achieve net zero. I am proud that we are the first major economy to commit to net zero. And we need to turn net zero into reality. That means we need to have net zero embedded into all decisions that are being made, both in the government and at local government level. We need a clear pathway. Of course I'll take one.
Very grateful. The Honourable Lady speaking about the importance of achieving net zero. How compatible is it to achieve net zero, the government's recent announcement that it's going to cut your passenger duty?
I'm going to come on to exactly that topic during my speech, but we have to embed net zero in every single decision that is being made by government and by local government and set a clear pathway. This year is a unique opportunity with the UK hosting the World Global Climate Change Conference. I'll come to the issue of transport emissions in my speech in a minute. I think it's really important that we are ambitious about the targets we set, but it's also vital that we bring people with us. And I'm looking forward to being an observer at the climate conference that is happening, the climate assembly that is happening for citizens in Birmingham over the next few weeks. There is no point in setting an ambitious target if it is not achievable. And the party's opposite suggestion that you could achieve net zero by 2030 is simply disingenuous. It is not honest, it is not true. This country has already done a huge amount to decarbonise electricity, leading the world in offshore wind, leading the world in ending coal, but there is more that we can do. It's great news that by 2025 our grid will be able to have completely carbon-free inputs to our electricity grid, but we know that it needs to be more resilient. That means it needs investment, which can't all come from public funds. It needs private investment too, which is why we need the strong economy. We also need to invest. I'm going to keep going because it's a short time and I don't want to run out of time, so I won't take any more interventions. We need to make sure that we can use smart demand management using AI and technology. I've seen firsthand on the national grid how this works. But in order to do that, we also need to unlock the electric vehicles because of the benefits they bring to battery storage. So I welcome the government's commitment to more EV charging points, although I do believe we need more urgency on this subject.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for allowing me to intervene. I thank my good friend for allowing me. One of the problems with electric vehicles, and I have looked at this, is they have these batteries and they cause a real problem, and we have a problem of making them without actually using resources.
The issue of electric vehicles, batteries and resources is something that the Science and Technology Select Committee looked into in great detail last year, particularly demand for lithium and cobalt. These precious materials are a globally constrained resource, and the fight for global minerals is going to be increasingly an important part of foreign policy, and I would like to see that part of the challenge towards net zero in the Foreign Office as well. I've also seen, and I have actually driven a hydrogen-fuelled car and returned it safely, keys back at the end. The use of hydrogen, not only in cars but also potentially in feeding part of hydrogen into our domestic gas network, can bring huge benefits. On the subject of transport, I'm pleased that the government is going to introduce a superbus strategy. We need better buses in my city of Chelmsford. We need to have medium and long-term strategies on that, and also re-looking at how we run our railways. The service that is being offered to my rail commuters in Chelmsford at the moment is simply not good enough. To the question that the SNP asked on airlines, as a One Nation Conservative, I see the need to make sure that we improve connectivity across all parts of our country, and the role that regional airlines are playing in that. But as an eco-Tory, I also see very urgently the need to address air emissions. One of the good things is that the UK is leading the world in developing cleaner, greener aircraft. Cranfield University is a leader here. But one thing I think we should do more about is carbon offsetting. EasyJet is now carbon offsetting all of its flights. Flybe doesn't offer that service to anyone. Consumers have a role to play here, and I think consumers should be given the ability to carbon offset. On the issue of carbon offsetting,
I thank you for giving me just back on that APD. Now, earlier on, when my colleague intervened, she was saying that net zero should be embedded in every government decision. So can she tell me how, if the UK government on a whim say we're going to review and reduce APD, how that means net zero is embedded in that decision?
Yes. I'd like to see, and I'm calling upon the government to look at how we embed net zero in every single decision. And I do believe getting cleaner, greener aircraft is one way to deliver both the connectivity, but also the more needs to be done by carbon offsetting, and in the medium and longer term we need to urgently look at this issue of aircraft emissions. On the issues of consumer choice, for many consumers their biggest part of their carbon footprint is how they heat their homes, and more needs to be done on decarbonisation of heat, so I warmly welcome the government's announcements to invest £9.2 billion in energy efficiency in our homes, schools and hospitals, but I would also like to call for more green mortgages. We have one of the most innovative financial services sector in the world, and we should be able to do more through how people finance their mortgages. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, on plastic. Okay. As you know, I am allergic to the use of unnecessary single-use plastic. It is great the government has committed another £500 million to the Blue Planet initiative that will help in developing countries across the world to protect our oceans. I warmly welcome the producer tax. We need to get a deposit return scheme going. Actually, this is an area where I believe Scotland would be better off if they worked within the whole of the UK to introduce a scheme that worked for the whole of the UK. That would be better for industry and for consumers. Consumers want to see a step change in how we deal with single-use plastic. It needs to be across all areas, not just food. We need to work with producers, we need to work with consumers, and it would be better if the people of Scotland would be working with all of the UK to deliver it.